These insects kill. Bloodthirsty parasites attacked the healthy adult man and ate him alive. Today I will tell you about dangerous insects capable of causing irreparable harm to human health and even taking lives. Warning: this video is not for the faint-hearted. A terrifying incident happened a few years ago in the Fulton County Jail in Atlanta. LaShawn Thompson was held in a filthy cell, which, besides him, housed numerous insects. He spent 3 months there, waiting to be transferred to another prison where he was to be charged with assault. However, he never made it out of his cell. The inmate's body was found by a staff member who had to wear a protective suit to approach the remains. That's how filthy the cell was. The man's corpse was mutilated. It was covered with numerous cuts and damage from repeated skin scraping. Experts concluded that the man was eaten alive by blood-sucking bugs. This story was kept from the public, but it eventually appeared in the media several months later. The failed resuscitation attempt is documented in the prison report, which also mentions that the cell was covered in filth and lice. Thompson's lawyer, Michael Harper, accuses the prison staff of his client's death, claiming that he was eaten alive by insects and left to die. Before being imprisoned, the man had no physical ailments. He was completely healthy. The crew of the American nuclear submarine USS Connecticut was at risk of being eaten alive by bedbugs. During Arctic exercises, insects got on board the vessel, and their infestation later became a serious problem for the sailors. According to the submarine's chief, the bedbugs were literally eating people alive. The crew had to sleep on chairs on the floor because the bunks were infested with blood-sucking parasites. People experienced constant discomfort, lack of sleep, and fatigue, which threatened the submarine's combat readiness. The submariners tried for several months to exterminate the bloodsuckers on their own, but they were unsuccessful. The bugs continued to torment the people, turning their lives into an endless hell. Despite numerous complaints, the command did not believe that the sailors were being eaten alive right on their bunks, as there was no evidence. Only several months later was a large-scale disinfection carried out, which the crew had been eagerly awaiting. Even though the insects were exterminated, the submariners feared that they would return to the vessel and continue to torment them at night. A few years ago, bedbugs became a real scourge for the residents of France. Newspapers were filled with reports of insects found not only in homes but also in public transport, hospitals, libraries, and even police stations. The situation became so serious that the authorities held emergency meetings to develop pest control plans. Citizens, fearing bites, called exterminators on their own. Many preferred to stand in crowded public transport, avoiding upholstered seats, which are an ideal refuge for bedbugs. Bedbugs were first discovered at Charles de Gaulle Airport. The situation culminated in a wave of videos on social media showing bedbugs in the Paris metro. Videos of tourists finding parasites in passenger seats quickly spread on social media. The creators of the videos warned about the need for caution when using fabric seats in public places. The discovery of bedbugs on a ferry arriving from Marseille to Tangier raised concerns among Moroccan authorities. In Belgium, particularly in Liège, there was a significant increase in demand for pest control services. The heightened interest in disinfection is partly due to preventive measures. Experts link the increase in the number of insects, particularly bedbugs, to their importation from France and other countries via transportation and tourist personal belongings. Some parasites even prefer to settle in the human body. A unique case of parasitic infection was recorded in Australia in a man who arrived from Sudan. For several years, a worm lived in his leg, causing severe itching. The patient sought medical help specifically because of this unpleasant symptom. After a thorough examination, doctors discovered that the parasite had entered the body through the gastrointestinal tract, eventually migrating to the foot. Surgical intervention allowed for the extraction of the roundworm. The parasite was about 4 inches long. Fortunately, the infection did not lead to serious health complications for the patient. The case demonstrates the classic infection route of dracunculiasis. A person becomes infected by swallowing water containing infected cyclops crustaceans. In the stomach, the parasite larvae are released, enter the bloodstream, and migrate to the limbs, where they eventually mature and cause characteristic symptoms. The case of the Sudanese immigrant highlights the importance of sanitation and hygiene measures to prevent the spread of dracunculiasis, and the necessity of seeking timely medical attention when suspicious symptoms arise, such as severe itching in the legs or other parts of the body. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned that insects killed a person in a prison cell. However, as it turns out, a hospital room is not always a safe place either. A Canadian patient, whose name is not disclosed, experienced a horrifying incident. Her hospitalization, prompted by a sudden deterioration in health, resulted in an unexpected and terrifying complication. A green blowfly, known for its ability to burrow under human skin and lay eggs, flew into the intensive care unit room, whose windows and doors were closed. Doctors could not explain how the insect got into the room, suggesting that it might have flown in from an adjacent hospital building. During the period when the patient was in a state close to unconsciousness or asleep, the blowfly presumably burrowed under her skin. Over the few days spent in the hospital, the insect laid more than 100 larvae in the area of the woman's eyelids and ears. This was a shock to the medical staff and the patient herself. Removing the larvae from the woman's eyes and ears took several hours. Fortunately, the timely intervention of the doctors prevented serious health consequences for the woman, and she was discharged from the hospital. The case highlights the necessity of strictly adhering to sanitary standards in medical facilities, even in seemingly airtight environments like intensive care units. If in the previous case doctors dealt with larvae, the next story is again about worms. A resident of the Chinese city of Kunming underwent a shocking operation to remove 60 live parasitic worms from her eyes. The woman sought medical help after she scratched her eye and discovered that a live worm had fallen out of it. This was an alarming signal that prompted her to immediately consult an ophthalmologist. During the subsequent surgical intervention, doctors were shocked by the extent of the infestation. There were numerous parasites between the patient's eyeballs and eyelids. 50 worms were extracted from the right eye, and another 10 from the left. All the parasites belong to the Filarioidea type. These are roundworms, typically found in Africa and some regions of South Asia, spread through insect bites. However, the woman categorically refutes the version of infection through bites, claiming that her pets were the source of the infection. According to her, she petted her pets and then, without washing her hands, carelessly touched her eyes, which led to the horrifying consequences. The case highlights the importance of thorough hygiene, especially after contact with animals, and the necessity of immediately consulting a doctor if any suspicious symptoms appear, such as discomfort or discharge from the eyes. Doctors closely monitored the patient after the surgery, assessing her condition and ruling out the possibility of residual parasites or the development of complications. What you are about to hear may forever change your attitude towards sushi. Dr. Kenny Ban, a general practitioner, encountered an unusual case. A patient came to him complaining of severe diarrhea and claiming to be suffering from helminthiasis, meaning an infestation with worms. The doctor initially regarded the patient's words with a healthy dose of skepticism. However, the patient presented the doctor with tangible evidence to support his claim of sizable tapeworm, which he said he had extracted himself during defecation. The length of the parasite astonished the doctor. It measured about 64 inches. During the conversation, it was revealed that the patient was a big fan of Japanese cuisine, particularly sushi. A resident of the Californian city of Fresno admitted that he consumed raw fish almost daily. This is most likely what caused the infection. Failure to follow the rules for processing and storing raw fish is a common cause of infection with various types of parasites, including tapeworms, which can reach incredible sizes, as in this case. The patient promised Dr. Ban to radically change his eating habits and to give up eating raw fish forever to avoid similar problems in the future. I don't know about you, but I think I'll have pizza for dinner tonight. Another horrifying story happened to a 70-year-old resident of the Indian state of Gujarat. A giant parasite was extracted from his eye. Jezebhai Patel suffered from excruciating pain and itching in his eye for several years. Despite numerous visits to doctors, the exact cause of his ailment remained a mystery. He was helped by an experienced ophthalmologist, Milan Punchal. He discovered a live parasite of impressive size in the patient's eye. Dr. Punchal performed a complex operation to remove the worm. The patient, who was under local anesthesia, could feel the process of the parasite's removal. "We extracted it alive," Punchal said, emphasizing the critical importance of timely intervention. A delay threatened irreversible loss of vision, and there was also a risk of the parasite entering the brain through the circulatory system. The operation, which lasted 25 minutes, was not easy. The worm's active movement made it difficult to capture and extract. According to Patel, he was bitten by a dog 12 years ago. Doctors suspected that this attack was the cause of the infection. Dr. Punchal explained that such parasites often reside in the oral cavities of dogs and cats. Another man lived with a tapeworm in his brain for 15 years. In Guangzhou, Chinese surgeons successfully removed a tapeworm from the brain of a 50-year-old man. Wang Lei's medical history began 15 years ago with the onset of unusual symptoms. The left side of the man's body lost sensation, and he also experienced severe headaches. Initially, doctors suspected a malignant brain tumor and prescribed appropriate treatment. However, the patient's condition continued to deteriorate. He was plagued by frequent epileptic seizures and progressive amnesia. After numerous examinations, the true cause of his suffering was identified. A tapeworm, which typically parasitizes in the digestive systems of cats and dogs, was residing in Wang Lei's brain. This is an extremely rare occurrence in humans. Initially, doctors recommended conservative treatment, considering the dangerous location of the parasite in close proximity to vital brain structures. However, the ineffectiveness of drug therapy forced surgeons to undertake a risky operation to extract the worm. The 2-hour operation, conducted in one of Guangzhou's hospitals, was successful. The surgeon who performed the operation emphasized the high complexity of the procedure due to the mobility of the live parasite inside the brain. Complete removal of the worm was critically important to prevent its further reproduction and growth. The doctor strongly recommends consuming only thoroughly processed food and boiled water. A 9-year-old boy from Connecticut became the victim of an unusual tick attack, which settled in his right ear. The child complained of strange noises in his ear, and upon visiting the hospital, doctors discovered a tick stuck in the inflamed eardrum. Removing the parasite required surgery under general anesthesia, as the tick had deeply penetrated the membrane. Fortunately, serious harm to the boy's health was avoided. Doctors note that such cases, although not common, especially in children, usually involve removing the tick from the ear under local anesthesia. However, in this case, the depth of penetration required more serious intervention. To avoid similar situations, parents should remember preventive measures. When walking in nature, especially in wooded areas, it is recommended to wear light-colored clothing with long sleeves and pants tucked into socks and shoes. This makes it easy to spot ticks. The use of repellents is necessary. Instructions for use should be strictly followed. After walks in nature, it is necessary to thoroughly check yourself and children for ticks, paying special attention to the scalp, ears, groin, armpits, and skin folds. Regular house cleaning and treating the area around the house with insecticides will help reduce the number of ticks. It is necessary to mow the grass and remove shrubs near the house. A far more shocking story happened to a 36-year-old paralyzed man. His wife, with whom he had lived for 12 years, and who is the mother of 2 children, left him to slowly rot and be eaten by maggots. Paramedics found the immobilized man on the brink of death in a cockroach-infested apartment in Concord. The woman called emergency services when her husband started having breathing problems. Paramedics arrived at the scene and found the sick man, whose body was covered in bed sores and maggots. The floor was littered with rotting garbage and feces, with cockroaches and flies swarming everywhere. A dirty, lice-infested mattress served as the man's bed. A neighbor described the place as a stinking mess. The patient, hospitalized in critical condition, died within a day from severe dehydration, malnutrition, and infection. His bones were deformed from emaciation. The police called it one of the most egregious cases of neglect they had ever encountered. According to Corporal Blakely, the patient was unable to speak, was gasping for air, and his body was being eaten by maggots. His wife could not explain the situation other than by citing fatigue and stress. I have told you several stories about people being eaten alive by maggots and worms. But can insects that are much more commonly encountered in a person's life cause harm? For example, cockroaches. Although cockroaches, of which there are 4,500 species, have strong enough jaws to bite, this happens very rarely. They prefer other food sources and attack humans and animals only accidentally while trying to determine the edibility of an object. A cockroach bite, if it does occur, would be similar to a mosquito or bedbug bite. After this, a person will notice a small itchy red bump. The standard treatment is to wash with soap and water, apply a cold compress, and use antihistamines if necessary. Allergic reactions to cockroach bites are unknown. However, as with any wound, it's important to avoid scratching to prevent infection. A much greater health risk is posed by allergens released by cockroaches. Their saliva, excrement, and particles of their chitinous shell can cause allergic reactions and asthma. Increased concentration of dust-containing cockroach allergens exacerbates symptoms such as coughing, nasal congestion, wheezing, and skin itching, and can also trigger ear infections and sinusitis. Often, people coexist with bedbugs, which I mentioned at the beginning of the video. Although there may not be scientific evidence that bedbugs are carriers of infectious diseases, their presence poses serious risks to the health and well-being of the population, as well as causing economic damage. Coexisting with bedbugs can cause severe allergic reactions to bites, up to anaphylactic shock, infection of bite wounds leading to skin diseases, and negative impacts on the mental health of people living in bedbug-infested homes. Bedbugs most often spread to infested items, clothing, furniture, and other household objects. They are found in residential homes, dormitories, hotels, as well as in stationary medical and children's institutions. In these places, bedbugs predominantly settle in bedroom furniture, cracks in walls and floors, behind baseboards, under wallpaper, in joints of furniture and cabinetry, as well as in books, paintings, and wooden windowsills. This allows them to easily move between rooms, houses, and even cities. Even within a single building, bedbugs can independently spread from one apartment to another. Therefore, upon discovering bedbugs, it is necessary to inform neighbors, as the insects can move through ventilation ducts, electrical outlets, and in the summer, along exterior walls. Before purchasing furniture and appliances, carefully inspect them for any damage and dirt. Avoid using second-hand furniture and carpets, especially those found on the street. They may be infested with bedbugs. To prevent infestation, regularly carry out maintenance work in the apartment. Whitewash the ceilings. Carefully wallpaper the walls without gaps. Seal cracks in the floor, baseboards, under windowsills, and door frames. People have learned to use some insects' passion for human flesh to their advantage. For instance, one of the oldest methods of cleaning open wounds is maggot therapy. For this method, fly larvae were used, particularly those of the blue or green bottle fly. It was believed that this allowed for the effective removal of necrotic tissue, preventing suppuration and inflammatory processes. The secret of its effectiveness lies in the unique feeding mechanism of the larvae. By releasing special enzymes, they dissolve dead tissue, leaving healthy tissue untouched. Moreover, the larvae do not bite, do not have stinging organs, and work like natural surgical instruments. Treatment could be conducted either by placing the larvae freely in the wound or by using special gauze bags, although the latter method is less effective. Interestingly, the use of larvae for treatment has a centuries-old history, with mentions found even in the lives of saints. Its systematic application has been documented since the time of Napoleon. During World War I, Dr. William Baer from the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine used the method of maggot therapy. He described a case where medics on the battlefield found two soldiers who had been lying with their wounds for about a day without medical assistance. Upon examination after removing their clothing, thousands of larvae were found in the wounds. Despite this, the wound tissues were clean and pink. I hope after watching this video you haven't started itching and looking around for swarms of insects approaching you. Remember, not everything that crawls and flies intends to harm you. Most insects are just living their lives, not paying any attention to us. So be curious, but also be cautious. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss new videos.